I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And
No.
Dr. Redmond
There
for
you
this?
go. Of course you are. You always
Yes.
are. What are you talking about?
Well, every now and then we do things where I'm just Sheila.
Yeah, when it's a Sunday show or when
That's
we're,
true.
talking about something that has nothing to do with the topic of the show. All right. We are back on Those Who Kill. It is week 3, episode 4. And I mean, it's an original episode. There's nothing like this in the American version. And
No.
I think I know why. Oh my God. There is... What are we watching here, guys?
Well,
Yeah.
it was, we said we would do one if it was an original episode. It turned out it was an original episode, so we did one, but we could have done 2.
Probably. We'll find out what's
Because,
in next week's episode, right? Yeah, I mean, maybe next week's episode is going to require a huge amount of thought and discussion. We can't tell in advance. We don't pre-watch these things. This is all our
No.
first analysis. And this time, I mean, what is the analysis? It felt nothing like an episode of Those Who Kill. It could have been an episode of any cop show.
yeah, I'm sure. The undercover guy gets killed. Our
And
forensic psychologist decides that because he's already been introduced as the brother
Of the undercover cop.
of the undercover cop, decides he'll go in and
Take
do
over.
something. And
Yeah.
I have to admit that the actual killer, it took me, it was...
Really? You didn't know
It
who
was
the
a
killer was the first time he appeared on screen?
Actually, no.
I am genuinely surprised. Okay, well,
I know.
we'll get
I was
there.
surprised. I went, well, I should have seen that coming.
I would agree
course
with
I
that.
should've.
I would agree you should have seen it coming. I don't know how
Hey,
you didn't.
I said,
you
well,
were distracted.
because-
There you go.
that all I can say is that I was in a mood yesterday when I watched
Okay,
it. So
maybe that's it.
I wasn't
All right,
really
so-
focused on this episode.
So,
there's nothing wrong with it.
I know it's a perfectly fine, generic episode of a show, but the fact is, Katrine doesn't do anything this week. Like, if you told me Katrine took the week off, I wouldn't have any evidence to argue with you.
In fact, if you told me they'd all taken the week off, except the captain.
Yeah. Captain is there. Captain's there a little. And, of course, the entire thing is about Thomas. And the coroner used to, be romantically involved with the undercover cop who gets killed.
Yeah,
Right.
So she has a hissy fit.
So, hey, I don't think that's... You're being very reductive calling that a hissy fit. Come on.
Yelling at Thomas. It comes out of the... I'm sorry.
It does.
but
It does
comes out
seem
of
to
the
come out of
blue.
nowhere. You're
Come
right.
on.
You're right. It is a bit abrupt. I'm not going to disagree. with that.
This
All
is
right. So
just
I will lay out the
come
plot of the
on.
episode. We are jumping around a lot.
Jeez.
Yes, a guy gets murdered. He
Mm-hmm.
is drugged. Right. He is drugged, and then his face is smashed in beyond human recognition, just smashed to a pulp.
Yeah.
Right. To the point where they would have trouble identifying him if they didn't have his fingerprints on file. And this man is a member of the Russian mafia.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the key part. There was a sex worker who was murdered in the exact same way.
There was also...
And another mobster. Yes, but I'm
and
just
another
talking about
mobster
chronologically.
6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because back in
6 months
January, a prostitute was killed. And then a few months earlier, 6 months earlier, another mobster was killed, all in the same way. So
Yeah.
a serial killer is targeting members of the Russian mob. That's where we're at when the episode starts. And so they call in there, they have a guy undercover there. He is the driver of the Russian mobster. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he mostly drives him around, but also drives the guy's adopted son around.
Yeah.
Right. And So they bring him in and they say, we need you to give us the lay of the land in the organization and keep us apprised of everything going on, because obviously someone is targeting this organization. Right? Someone is targeting this organization, so be careful. Here's the SIM card. Keep us informed, and we need to know what's going on.
Now, wait a minute.
And then the next scene, that guy's already dead. Literally, So he walks out of the police station, and Thomas goes to goes with him to talk to him about the kinds of people there, to start his profile going, to see if he can get a sense of it. And as they're standing outside, half a block away from the police station, the mobsters drive up.
Yeah.
And are like, hey, who's this guy you're talking to? And so the undercover cop says, this is my brother Thomas. He just got back into the country. It's like,
and we're
catching up.
Relatives.
Yeah, we're visiting relatives down in this part of town, right? We got
and then there is a whole bunch of apartment buildings low style. Yeah, exactly. It tracks, and everybody believes.
No one would assume you were there to be at the police station, because they're right downtown. There's plenty of buildings around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It works completely, and it's totally believable.
Yeah.
All right.
Everything about the episode is believable.
Oh yeah, it's a perfectly good
episode.
It just doesn't feel like the rest of the show has felt.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I'll get into it. So the undercover cop is, in the next scene, he's already been murdered. He gets killed immediately. And so now they're like, what the hell are we going to do? We'll have to get someone in there. And Thomas thinks to himself, hey, wait a minute. I've already been introduced.
Well, no, what happens is that Thomas says, look, they're saying, well, was he found out that he's a cop? And Thomas says, no, if he was a cop, they would have shot him in the head.
Yeah. It's quite reasonable.
And nobody listens to him.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a mob war potentially. And
yeah.
Anyway, Thomas just throws up his hands and decides on his own to pop over and visit the boss.
Yeah, and the point is, it's clearly, the idea that they found out he was a cop is ludicrous, because it's obviously the actions of the same serial killer. It's the exact same MO. Same drug, same brutal beating, right? It's the exact same MO as the other serial killer. Why would you think for a second that this was A, mob war, or B, right, him being, well, it could be a mob war because they don't know who's doing it. But it's why would you possibly think he had been found out? No, they wouldn't kill him in the exact way that the serial killer has been killing people. Mm-mm. This is not a good mob execution way. Thomas has already pointed out that this is obviously a massively emotional thing about a guy trying to destroy people's identities.
Yeah, and, the mob killed, they would have shot him in the head and dumped him in the river.
Exactly. There'd be no reason not to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, Thomas is completely right, and it's kind of silly that they don't listen to him about that.
Yes, well, they're all upset because
their friend has been murdered. Yeah, exactly.
And of course, our coroner has had, an emotional outburst.
Yeah.
And they're all emotional, and the captain says, because the captain had wanted to pull him out, and the guy says, no, leave me in.
Yeah.
Which made sense, because the undercover cop is right, he says, and so the captain says, okay, you've got 4 more days, and then he's killed the next day. Well, yeah, but, and he's all upset.
Know they could not have possibly known what was going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Right. And so Thomas goes and he's like, I need to know what happened to my brother. And, now I don't have anybody here. Do you have any work for me? And they do have work for him because, the guy in charge was a big fan of his brother.
Yakov was, yes.
Yeah.
Well, because his brother took care of
the adopted
his son very well.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, he never even says adopted. He just says his son. So
we find that out
a
lot later. That's his adopted son.
Yeah.
Right. And in fact, he has a habit of pulling people out of orphanages, and that's how he gets all of the people to work for him. He recruits them from orphanages, so they will be loyal only to him. But this is the first time that one of them has been his son, and that's relevant later.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, but you're right. In fact, from a psychological standpoint, the fact that this is the one that he refers to as his son,
Yes.
Right? In fact, is hugely relevant to the plot. So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
Like, that is actually very relevant to the plot, especially when we find out from the young guy that all of the guys on his team are people he grabs from orphanages.
Except for one.
Except for one, yes.
Yeah. The Yakov, not Yakov, the Yuri, I think.
Yuri, yeah.
Had just showed up, and
Exactly.
he was an enforcer, is what Yuri was.
Yeah, he's like just a guy who came in from some other
Russia.
family in the Russian mob. Like, he needed muscle, and this guy showed up.
Yeah.
But Matthias and the doctor and all of these other guys, are guys who...
Andreas, the cook.
Yeah, the cook. yeah, exactly, right? Are all guys that he had effectively adopted, but none of them were his sons. They were all just his soldiers. And that's why the new kid is different, because he's actually being treated as a son rather than just someone who he adopted to his criminal organization.
Yeah.
And he is paranoid about his son's safety, right? To a fault. He won't even let his son play soccer.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, but that's just us jumping around.
Okay. Yeah. We missed if we're going to do a chronological narrative, what we missed was Thomas's wife phoning him and saying, "I'm going out tonight. You're still coming, right?" And so he says, yes, he's going to go and take care of his son.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when he gets the phone call while he's with his son. I'm assuming he called his wife to bring her home, because I would hope he didn't leave his son alone. His son fell asleep. He played games with his son, and then his son fell asleep. So he put his son down to sleep. And then he gets a phone call that says the undercover cop had been killed. Yeah. And so it's all hands on board.
Hands on deck. Fun fact. And I'm just like, it's one of those things where I always wonder, what is product placement? What is not product placement? Because, they're all using PlayStations, and not only are they playing a recognizable game, they full on say that the name Mod Nation Racers of the game they're playing. And I'm like, I wonder if I'm looking at product placement. And then I'm like, I can't be. There's no way that the Sony Corporation would do product placement on the show Those Who Kill. Would they? No, they couldn't. But I was a little puzzled.
Never mind. So they just liked the game, and it was
exactly
a game that probably both of them were able to play.
Oh yeah, and they also had FIFA, right? We also see them playing FIFA on a different PlayStation 3 later in the show. Well, no, it's him and the son of the mobster. But the point is, they do parallel his, he's missing his son, and so he's playing with the kid of the mobster, and it's like they draw a pretty clear parallel. Yeah. Which I thought was nice. All right, but Thomas decides to go in, and he's given a job to deliver a package to a warehouse, and he goes and he drops it off, and there's nobody around, and he's walking away, and it turns out he was delivering a bomb to blow up one of the Lithuanians' warehouses because they're in conflict with one another. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there you go.
Works out well.
It does. It works out pretty well.
So they're happy with him. He's delivered the bomb. He didn't look around. He didn't,
and more importantly, he didn't run off after getting put in danger. Like, he kept he's pissed that they didn't tell him it was a bomb, but he didn't, run to the cops. He didn't flee. He came back to them after doing it, so they feel like he is trustworthy. Yeah. So they check him out. He gets an apartment, right? He gets fake ID. He gets a cell phone he can use to call the cops if there's any kind of an issue, right? So they'll know where he is. Like a special SIM card that he can pop into his phone that lets the cops track him easily. So he is ready to do his undercover thing. And then the mobsters come in and they intimidate him, and they want, it's like we got a fun little scene of him having to hold up. And it's nice that they've done a really good job of decorating this hotel room like he's been there for a while. Yeah. Yeah. They thought all of this stuff through. The apartment is very well decorated. I thought that was a nice touch. He gets there and it's just it's as he's able to say, because the mobsters get there 2 minutes after he does. He's like, sorry, it's so messy. Yeah. Jeez. All right. And so in here we meet the doctor. And here's the thing, okay? And
well,
this
not
is,
yet. Yeah. Well, you can,
Yeah.
no, because first of all, he gets taken off to do a job
Yeah.
with, Yuri, I think. And,
no, it's Matthias.
oh, Matthias. And they're all, because they're still testing him. And so they take him off and they're moving drugs and dope. And then he's supposed to kill the Lithuanian guy. And
Matthias tells him the Lithuanian guy killed his brother. And of course, he knows that it's a serial killer. And this is absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
And Katrine shows up to arrest them, really to give him a chance to flee before he is forced to actually kill the guy. So there you go. Yeah. That's how he gets out of that one. But he gets, injured in the process. And this is where we introduce the doctor. And literally, the minute the doctor appears on the screen, I'm just like, okay, so there's your killer. All right.
Yeah, well, as I said, I had to have been not really focused on the subject matter, except that it seems that I do remember the chronological order.
You do, you're crushing that part. But yeah, like the minute he appeared on screen, and I'm like, why are you guys not thinking of the MO?
Yeah,
and the MO is someone is using injected
morphine,
narcotics to knock people out before killing them. A, who has access to narcotics? B, who's comfortable, safely injecting people?
Yeah, no,
C,
it was...
Who are you comfortable getting an injection from? Put all those things together, there's only one conceivable suspect. These are all mobsters, and somebody is able to walk up to them. And this is the part that bothered me about the episode. Why does it not occur to anybody how weird it is that these are all hardened mobsters, and someone is able to walk up to them and give them an injection without because there's no signs of resistance. These people weren't in fights. They were drugged and then their faces were smashed in. So my point is, who is this guy? Who are these guys going to feel comfortable getting a shot in the arm from? And there's only one name on that list.
Yes. And Thomas does know it's probably internal.
Yeah.
He doesn't, it doesn't seem like it's the Lithuanians.
No.
So it's got to be somebody inside. The question is, who is it? Thomas doesn't twig to the doctor as such either, because the doctor cuts him, sews up the knife cut in his arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because they need to stretch this episode out,
they do.
To an hour and a half. So, he gets the knife and he gets it sewn up, and the doctor's just saying, I'm too, Yakov took me out of an orphanage and saw my potential and sent me to medical school. And, and so Thomas says, well, why would you do that? Why would he do that? And, the doctor says, well, maybe because of the bad things they do. The doctor is pretty good at covering it up. We have watched TV shows, and yes, I should have seen it, and you saw it, but I can see how the people inside the system don't see it right away.
Yeah.
Because, the doctor gives Thomas...
He's not thought of as a threat.
No. Gives Thomas a bunch of drugs to take
to the chef.
To the chef, to hand out to other people. The chef is the one who is going to take care of his wound, because the doctor has made a point of saying, these guys only come to me when it's infected.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you came so early. But that's not the issue. And, and Andreas is, I thought when Andreas is listening, the cook, the chef, is listening to this song, right?
Yeah.
About the fox and the hen.
The fox and the hen, yeah.
This Russian song that he has to explain to Thomas. And I'm listening. Yeah, they did a good job of making him a red herring.
Oh yeah, he's a very good red herring, because
he is.
He's very creepy, and more importantly, you later find out that he's a rapist, which is what that whole thing about the song is about.
Yeah, the song is the hen, that the fox falls in love with the hen, but still eats the hen.
Exactly.
The hen first falls in love with the fox.
Because that's the nature of the fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for Thomas not to hone in on the doctor, maybe that's what it is that I believed enough. Maybe I got
you got hornswoggled by the
Yes.
red herring is what happened.
Yeah, I got horned. Yeah, but I couldn't quite see Andreas doing the other things,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because they do find the prostitute
Mm-hmm.
and they do notice all of these other things. We do once in a while for like a couple of minutes go back to the police station, but it's almost like the police station almost doesn't exist. Nobody else.
I was not
almost.
exaggerating when I say that, Katrina's basically not in this episode.
Yeah, she could have, or
when
her
she
boss.
shows up, right? When she shows up to rescue him from the drug deal gone bad, I'm like, oh, right, she's in this show. Like, it's just...
Well, yeah, it's that bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of them are around.
Yeah.
And it is basically a Thomas. Now, the one thing I will say at this point, before we go on, is that after last week's episode...
Oh, we needed a relief. Yes.
Okay, so what we're getting here is relief. So Thomas is now part of the gang. He's the driver.
Yeah.
And his main job is to drive Sebastian around. It's not even so much Yakov, it's to take care of Sebastian.
Yeah. Make sure he gets to school. Yeah, make sure he gets to school, make sure he gets to home, and make sure, he's never alone, basically. And this is because he spends all of this time, he finds out that, like, his dad is so overprotective, right?
That he hasn't even played soccer on a grass pitch.
Exactly. He won't even let him go out and, like, play pickup games of soccer with other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very paranoid.
Yeah.
Understandably.
Understandably. But he was probably already paranoid, I mean, he would have been paranoid anyway. Yeah. But yes, this is and the doc, and the crime boss, we don't see it yet, but anyway.
We find out soon after that the reason he's so paranoid, right, is that he's got cancer. And he's dying, and so, like, he's terrified that something is going to happen to his son before he has secured his son's future. And he even asks Thomas, he's like, you're an outsider, like, you're new to all of this, you're seeing this stuff clearly. Who do you think I should put in charge? Right?
Yeah.
I've only got
3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I got 3 to 6 months, so who should I be putting in charge? And, of course, Thomas is like, well, obviously, the jerk who tried to get me to shoot somebody, Matthias, because, he's, if you are going into a war with the Lithuanians, he's the guy you want in charge. And he does a great job, by the way. He does a great job of making his point because the boss, right, says that Matthias was not a fan of your brother. And he's like, yeah, but that's not relevant to who should be in charge. Yeah. Like, he's doing a very good job of selling himself. I really liked that scene.
And Matthias is the one who doesn't, like, Yakov is, Yuri is the hitman. Matthias is clear-headed is what it is. Mm-hmm. Just like Yakov is clear-headed.
He's clear-headed, and he's also conniving, though, trying to get Thomas to shoot that guy.
Oh, well, yeah, because he wants to make sure that Thomas is on board, and he has something on Thomas.
Exactly.
Now, for some reason, the other guy must have done other things.
Oh, yeah.
To prove his worth.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he's been undercover for, at least a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's getting along with the child is what is key.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have too much else to do. Thomas doesn't have much else to do but drive Yakov around and drive Sebastian to school, drive and pick him up. He actually has to walk
right to the front door
Sebastian to the front door and see that he goes into it.
Yeah.
The school. And then he picks him up and he's always there. It is they don't focus as much on it, but you can see this paranoia. So all of a sudden, Thomas's wife has tried to get in touch with him or to talk to him. He calls, and then all of a sudden he's got to hide everything because she says she thinks he's sick.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas says, well, no, he's probably just, blah, 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 and they're talking, and all of a sudden he can hear somebody coming. So he's got to get rid of the SIM card, stick it in the cigarette pack. I didn't ever see him smoke.
No.
And I think he should have smoked.
He should have smoked if he's going to use the fact that he's always got the cigarette pack on him as a cover. You should probably be smoking then, buddy.
Yeah, have the odd cigarette. Maybe, an ashtray full of cigarette butts, something. There are a few little things like that are problematic.
Not hugely by any means.
No. And then he has to go back because Sebastian has disappeared.
No, not yet.
Not yet? What happens first?
You've forgotten, and this is the part I loved,
okay.
that Matthias, right? That, literally, again, the next scene after he, after he says maybe Matthias should be in charge, Matthias is the next victim.
Dead.
Yeah, Matthias is dead. And that is what it turns up the paranoia and makes the Russians think they have to go to war with the Lithuanians.
Okay, but here's another thing.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what persuades, number one, Thomas that it's got to be an inside job. But it is another reason why you don't think it's David, or I didn't think it was David. I didn't
think it was David.
No, okay. Because I thought it had to be someone around who might have heard, this discussion.
And that's a reasonable thing to think.
Yeah, and of course the little boy did hear the discussion, as we find out later.
Yes.
But Matthias is the next one found dead.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so the paranoia rises, and then all of a sudden the kid has disappeared.
Yeah.
Well,
and so they panic and they go searching for him, right?
Thomas comes up with the...
Yeah. Well, because they had this sweet conversation about how desperately he wanted to play soccer, right?
With other kids.
And so he remembers the soccer field he was longingly looking at. And he's like, we should check there. And that is, in fact, where it is.
And Yakov surprisingly lets him play.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's a nice scene because
it's a wonderful
It's
scene.
a genuinely nice scene. And the thing I liked most about it was that he saw it in himself that he liked that his son is breaking a rule. Like, he likes that his son isn't letting himself be bossed around. That, this is something that was important to him. And he's like, and the son is basically, I could always get you to forgive me later. Right?
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch because he was seeing something of himself.
Yeah. And Yakov, just says, next time ask.
Yeah.
And what he says was, you wouldn't let me go.
Yeah. If I
asked.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
That's how he says it. Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought was great.
And then Thomas talks to him. He says, I thought you were going to punish him. No.
He sees something of himself.
In this kid, someone who will be able to take over the business
someday.
Yeah,
that's what he's hoping for.
But it's so interesting. We didn't talk about the conversation in the car between Sebastian and Thomas, but Sebastian is, your brother was a lot more fun.
Yeah.
But also he said he doesn't want to grow up because all the grown-ups around him are dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've got 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
And, and now, clearly Andreas is basically off although Andreas is now afraid because Sebastian tricked him into letting him go outside.
Yeah.
So he could go off and play soccer with a bunch of kids on the...
Yeah, so the cook is in trouble, and that's the thing. The cook is in trouble, and it's after they say, look, and this is where we find out that he had been, he had been sought in a rape case, and so this is all to make you more suspicious of him.
Yeah, and the funny thing is at this point, I am not. I cease to be suspicious of him
because it's too obvious now.
yeah. Now it's just like no. Particularly when you look at the fear on his face.
Yeah, obviously he's not a calculating killer.
And there was no fear on his face before.
No.
Right, and yes, and he beat up the prostitute for whatever reason. Obviously the song, the fox and the hen.
Yeah.
Is just, it has become sort of almost his anthem because he did care about this prostitute, but somehow or another, whatever she did, he beat her up.
Yeah, and
Like he just
doesn't
beat her up.
and he does, and he takes solace in this fairy tale idea that, well, that's just in his nature.
Yeah,
you know.
so he stays away from women now.
Yeah,
it's basically
what they're saying. Yeah,
yeah, and so it is good. It's after this that Thomas starts to, well, no, he's at the school. He's taken Sebastian to the school, and there's somebody putting a ticket on his car. And he says, is this a no parking? It turns out that, of course, they've sent him a message. His son is in the hospital.
Yeah.
They think it's meningitis.
Yeah, so he has to rush off to the hospital. And he, calls and says he was in a car accident. He's going to be delayed. And he asks David to go and get Sebastian from school.
Yeah. Now, before that, he's actually looked at all of the crime photos.
Yeah.
And he's going, no, the girl is not part of this.
Mm-hmm.
That the girl was the first one.
Yeah.
And all the others have been made to look like the girl.
The girl was an emotional thing you did, and the rest are calculating.
Yeah, that they're staged, basically.
Exactly.
To look and to set whoever killed the prostitute up, and we know that's Andreas.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that somebody's trying to frame him.
Yeah.
And it is, so then he goes to the school, and then he goes to the hospital. And, so he and his wife, and he stays at the school. Now, I honestly thought they were going to, because Yuri has been following him.
Yeah.
And so I honestly thought when he sent his wife out,
that it was going to be his wife who was going to get kidnapped.
His wife was going to get kidnapped, right?
Reasonable thing to think.
Yeah, it is a reasonable thing to think, I thought, except that, he's with his son, and then he has to go out and do a phone call thing. And
but before he goes out to do the reason he goes out to do the phone call thing is he has to check something. Now, the important...
And he checks, yes. He looks at the x-rays.
He looks at the x-ray of his son, and he's like, that's interesting, because the x-rays of his son, the name of the patient, his son, is, written out, typed, essentially. Written out in block letters on the top. And so he goes to the doctor, and he's like, hey, is that normal? Right? The whole idea? Because I saw a set of x-rays recently that, like, the name of the patient was handwritten on the top, and and the doctor's like, well, it didn't happen in this hospital then, or at any time in the past 20 years. Like, that's just not how we do x-rays anymore.
No.
And
we
so
got
then,
these fancy dancy machines, that type the
Yeah.
name and the patient number and everything else on it.
Yeah, that's all, like, we're much higher tech now. And then he realizes, oh, wait a minute. And so then he asks him the follow-up, could you give someone drugs to mimic the causes of brain cancer, right?
It's actually colon cancer.
Oh, right, it's colon cancer. Yes, you're right.
He's got colon cancer.
No, it was colon cancer. I completely forgot.
And it's gotten into his liver, so he's only got 3 to 6 months to live. Now, what we forgot
and so when he
is
says
that
it, but I was just saying
that
but the point is, he's like, most of it is, the doctor is quite reasonable in saying that, most of it is just horrible pain, so it would not be hard to do that with drugs.
Yeah. Okay. Now, but to go back, but before he sees the x-ray, he has called David to go pick up Sebastian.
No, I said that part. No, I said that part.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, the point is he had already gotten David to pick up Sebastian when he figures out that David is the killer.
Yeah, and that David has been faking the cancer.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Then he goes to call Katrina. They decide they're going to pull him out.
Mm-hmm.
Now
that they know who the killer is.
Now that they know who the killer is.
The 1 minute that he is out of the room, the mobsters come in and abduct his son.
Yep.
That seemed a little preposterous to me at the time. I know it has to happen for the rest of the episode to occur, but...
Well, yeah, but the nurse let them go.
That's why I thought it was preposterous.
Yeah, and the thing is, they got him dressed and everything else. And,
in 1 minute! That's my point. It all happened in a 1 minute.
Yeah.
That's the part
when
I
we
find
finally,
absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then they call him and say, Sebastian, you have Sebastian.
My
Where's
son
Sebastian?
is missing. Yeah. My son has disappeared. I want him back or I'll kill your son. I'll trade you a son for a son, is what he says to him.
Yeah. And so it's Yakov and Yuri now, basically the only ones left. And but the cops are already racing over to David's.
Yeah.
But we watch that, right? We watch David picking Sebastian up, and then we watch the whole thing. And we watch Sebastian going, "No, you're not going to put a needle into me," because he's trying to talk him into getting another needle.
He says MMR. But the key part is he had no intention of killing, Sebastian. He was not going to kill Sebastian. His plan, as, Thomas lays out, was to essentially kill off all of the people ahead of him in the line of succession and then poison and kill the boss so that he could, and then he would take over, acting essentially as the, I'm blanking on this, Regent. Thank you. Yeah, Regent. The Regent for Sebastian until Sebastian could come of age, right? Yes. And be ready to take over. And who knows if that would ever happen. But what happens is Thomas has said, I had a friend, when he finds out about the cancer, the first thing he says, because he is a doctor, the absolute first thing he's not playing a doctor, but he is a doctor. The first thing he says is, I had a friend who had cancer, right? And this is the doctor he went to see. And that doctor got him to a clinic in Germany and he's fine now. Right? So maybe this isn't hopeless. Get a second opinion. And what happens is that Sebastian tells David about the second opinion and about the German doctor. And David, of course, realizes the jig is up. If his boss gets a second opinion, he'll know that the whole thing was a fraud and he'll be killed.
Yep.
So yeah, like the whole thing, there wasn't an emotional component at all. He just found out that, he figured out that he was nowhere in the line of succession. He genuinely thought that there was a chance he was going to get to take over until Sebastian was adopted. And then he realizes, oh no, he's going to have a kid specifically to take over. And that's when he started this whole game. It was all there was an emotional component to it because he recruited all of these children from orphanages and they were all his, de facto children. But the minute he got a de jure child, suddenly this guy felt betrayed because he realized he wasn't as close to the boss as he thought he was.
Well, and what's interesting about that is that we do hear the story from Andreas about how he got picked.
Yes.
In the orphanage, right? And so that he does pick children who are already prone to violence or prone to being ready to.
He has a good sense of who is going to be an outlaw or who's going to be willing to live that life or well suited to that life.
Yeah.
Including David, but he just didn't realize how, crafty David was. David was unusually smart, so he thought this will be a legitimate person. I'll have a legit person.
Well, he's going to become a doctor,
doctor
or a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. So he'll be a legit person who, will use, so we'll have someone outside of our criminal organization who can do us all kinds of favors and could move in legit circles. But that's not what David wanted. David wanted to be his father's son. David wanted to be the boss like his dad was the boss. Yeah. But he was never seen that way, and that's what he finds out when Sebastian gets adopted. I mean, it's the weird part is, for a show that's supposed to be about the psychology and about the thing, I was not expecting for it to go so into the psychology of the characters right at the end. Because so much of the rest of the episode had just been this completely generic crime story, right? Yeah. And it really is just a crime story about a guy trying to move up in the mob. But for them to anchor it in the psychology of these relationships between the mob boss and his various recruits, I thought it was a really smart way to end the episode, right?
Oh,
because it managed to bring it back quite well.
Yes, because what happens is they do manage to, because Sebastian balks.
Yeah.
At David's getting this, because David explains it to him, but if I just give you this shot, you won't feel it when I hit you.
Yeah.
Right? When I beat you up.
Mm-hmm.
And, but Sebastian balks. And they get there in time. Katrine gets there in time. And they, of course, shoot David.
Yeah.
And I mean,
they wound
Thomas
David.
has to
He's
run.
off to jail. Yeah. Thomas goes and he tries to, put himself, I'll be
as
the
a hostage
I'm a
instead.
more valuable hostage than his child. I'm easy to control. Doing the standard things. And while they're talking, Katrine just shoots David,
Well, Sebastian kind of worms his way away because David doesn't know what to do now.
Yeah.
Right.
This is very much
apart.
not his plan. He's not good at this part of the thing.
No. So, Thomas has Sebastian. He goes and meets Yakov and Yuri,
and they trade
his
back
son
for
Moshe.
child. Yeah.
Yeah.
And pointedly, the cops don't try to ambush. That's the interesting part. Katrine they don't even talk about it, right? It's not like anyone has a conversation or this becomes a thing. There's no question for a second that Katrine won't just sign off on turning
Thomas.
over the child of the mobster and letting the mobsters get away with kidnapping.
Yeah. Because what happens, of course, as we find out at the very end, is that Yakov and Yuri and Sebastian have fled back to Russia. Yeah.
They picked up other members of the gang. They picked up basically all the members of the gang we didn't meet.
Yeah.
Or the extras in the background at the boxing gym where they that they run their crime gang out of. I just thought it was funny. It's we arrested all the people who were never actually characters on the show. We arrested everybody, but we didn't get the two top guys. And of course, Sebastian,
they just disappear with Sebastian.
Yeah,
and
as you said,
that's
they go
just
back to
fine.
Russia. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, they're criminals, and yes, they were, blew up a warehouse and gonna go to war with the Lithuanians, but comparatively speaking, they didn't seem like the worst guys.
Well, considering what we had seen in the prison.
I know, right?
The week before.
It's kind of insane that, the one set in a prison, everyone is so much more monstrous than the Russian organized crime people.
Yeah, and the Lithuanians.
And the Lithuanian mobsters. Yeah, all of them, really.
Yeah, because they've got rules and they've got structure, and
honestly,
this is why they get away with it for so long. And then the minute they know the jig is up, they leave.
Yeah, they leave. We're out of here. We're not going to busy ourselves with revenge or trying to take things over. But no, we're just out of here. We're just going to dip. Yeah, it's fine.
No, I mean, it was, I liked the ending. Really, I did.
Too.
It dragged a bit in the middle, sort of, but that was probably more me than anything else.
Yeah.
I think. It worked. I mean, it was a very nice episode.
I have been joking because it so doesn't feel like the other episodes.
No.
But I think fundamentally, it's still a good episode of the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good episode of television. It gives Thomas a chance to stretch.
Yep.
He does a really good job in it. I was happy with the episode, but it is such a departure for the show.
I know, it's just like you go, well, I guess we could have done another one, but maybe not.
No.
But it was, it would have been really long, but this one was, I mean, I think it is this, and I think Morgan did it after his 5th episode too.
Yeah.
Right. We had a filler episode, and this one, the only person who's emotionally distraught is the coroner, and what we get from her is, yes, well, he always told me to go find somebody else because someone who would deserve her. And she says, but he deserved me. And that was all, because I mean, it was a dead end relationship that she was in anyway.
Yeah.
He was an undercover cop. He was
And he genuinely liked being an undercover cop.
Yes. And he was doing a really good job.
They could never have a real relationship. He was good at his job and he liked his job. So he was never going to be available.
No. And this way she gets to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than it being nothing here relates to Katrine's life. Nothing here related to Thomas's life except the child. And that all's well that ends well.
Oh, yeah.
His son is fine. Literally, his son is fine. It wasn't meningitis.
No.
It couldn't have been.
His son is
whatever it was.
Fine. Like, they're just going to get, like, by the time, because I was worried that he was going to be, like, sickly or something. Was there going to be complication because they're holding this sick child hostage? But, like, we see him at the handoff, and he's like, no, he's fine. Oh, okay.
He's fine. He's already
so whatever it was,
he can walk.
It was, they got him on the antibiotics, and he'll be okay.
Yeah.
It was probably just bronchitis. Who can say? Oh, my God.
But what the hell, and Sebastian is fine. And he was such a nice kid.
Yeah.
That you like these two kids and they didn't overtake anything. They were key to the plot, but
they don't take over the show. Yeah.
No. And, it's no sort of wishy-washy stuff.
Oh, no. And I think they did a good job. You're right. Especially writing the Sebastian stuff. So you get right on board with the kid right away without him being cloying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, the kid's never cloying, and you're on his side right away. You totally understand his frustration, right? Like, and, him missing the people, like, and missing the brother who had been so close to him. And because he's never around other kids, so he just has to hang out with these mobsters all the time.
Yes.
So, of course.
The adults.
Yeah. No,
so it was a good, and he was realistic, and, so it was, and never, let's face it, he'll be able to play soccer in Russia.
Exactly. He can have all the soccer he wants in Russia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to say it's weird. And I did recoil initially when I realized just how much of a departure it was.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess my thought was, since they are only doing, I mean, it's 12 episodes, but it really 6 episodes because they're all 2-parters.
Yeah.
Since they're only doing that many, I'm thinking, it feels to me like all of them should be about the overall state of serial killers, but at the same time, unlike the Morgan Brothers version, right, this doesn't have, like, you don't feel like there's an overarching plot happening at all.
No, you don't. Like, there is a serial killer
each week.
But this episode has a serial killer in it.
Oh, absolutely.
But not
he's doing it for
sexual serial killer.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's doing it not for his own gratification, but for very specific moving up in a criminal organization means. He's just copying the crimes of the
actual
bad
guy who could have developed into a serial killer, but got stopped by Yakov and his crew, because it never happened again.
Exactly.
And
I found that really interesting. Because we're watching the show, and here we are 4 episodes in, and you really don't feel like they're. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. You really don't feel like they're building to something. You really feel like, no, these are just a series of cases that are happening to these characters. It's much more standard, because if you think about it, even with, even in their most case of the week, you really felt that they were developing what was going on with her and her stepfather, right?
Yeah.
With Catherine and her stepfather, and Thomas, and the fact that his obsession with understanding murderers was destroying his life. Yes. But he's addicted to it and he doesn't know how to stop. And
yes, whereas here,
like, there is no reference of any kind to Katrine's backstory this week. Like, just none. Doesn't come up
there's
at all.
Nothing that's going to trigger her.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying they could have put in, we could have had a scene with that guy who's pestering her, the one night stand guy. They didn't do anything with her story this week. And Thomas, honestly, like, yeah, he's basically a cop now, but no one's questioning that. Like, no one's questioning that or finds it strange. His ex-wife has just accepted this about him.
Yeah,
and she's
that's why she left him.
Yeah, that's why she left him. But that's all already happened. Yeah. Like, you really felt on Those Who Kill, the American version, that this marriage was doomed. Like, because she leaves him at the end of the thing, right at the end of episode 9 or whatever, or episode 8 or 9. I don't remember when she actually walked out.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, he can't stop this. Yeah. He's an addict. Like, she's not coming back, is what you feel when you watch that episode. And you understand, had they gotten their season 2, we would have dealt with the ramifications of, like what it meant to him that his wife wasn't coming back. And it's like what this addiction was, why this addiction happened, and there was going to be stuff with his brother to get deeper into it. Like, you could see all of it where it's going.
Oh, we haven't talked about his brother. No.
I mean, we mentioned it last week when that plot happened.
No, I was just going to say, No. Okay, yeah.
No, that was last week. Yeah, don't scare me like that.
No, I was just going to say, no, there was nothing really about his brother.
No, nothing new about his brother this week, because he's only talking about... And in fact, it almost feels like an oversight. Yeah. Because, now he's pretending to have a dead brother, and he really does have a dead brother who he had this, fraught relationship with. Had they been interested in it, they could have used the undercover cop's death to delve into how he felt about his actual brother, but we only get one line that even hints at that, because he just talks about how he and his brother didn't really get along. Yes. You know how siblings are. But when you see that scene, you can read it as him commenting on, right, his relationship with his older brother, who was a dangerous criminal who died in jail. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like he's doing that.
No.
It doesn't feel like he's revealing anything personal in that moment. No. And that's what I'm talking about. That's why the episode felt weird to me, is that even when you have an opportunity to, like, deepen, you could have had a thing, right? You could have had a thing where someone wants him to talk about his dead brother, and gradually we realize he's talking about something from his own life, right? He's actually using a story from his own life of his own brother, and like why he's haunted by his relate. But they don't do anything like that. Like, this was an opportunity. If this was the American show, right?
He would have done it, yeah.
If this was the American show and he had to go I mean, can't imagine a situation in the American show where that version of Thomas would have had to go undercover with the mob. But that's just
he couldn't have, because this one is much more stable. I mean, even his relationship with his ex-wife is stable.
Oh, 100%. Like,
she's only concerned. Yeah, she's only concerned that he's not seeing his son, and maybe his son is going to forget he exists if he doesn't start showing up more often.
Yeah, I know, right?
That was the only complaint.
Issue. But
she's
you see, had this plot happened in the American version, we would have had a scene where essentially he's expected to talk about, losing his brother. And then we would have had this whole monologue from Thomas about their childhood. And we would have been like, oh, he's talking about his actual relationship with his actual criminal brother. And we would have learned something about Thomas based on him being forced to open up to the mobsters.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
Please.
Because Thomas knows almost nothing about Carstairs, the undercover cop.
Yeah.
Karsten. Right. And if he had started talking like that, who knows what the mobsters know about
They
Carstairs.
wouldn't have. They didn't even know he had a brother, right?
Yeah.
But there's no way Karsten talked about his childhood at all with these guys.
Yeah, but there's the prison thing. I mean, because remember, they say that they talk to him about going to Thailand, and he goes, Thailand? Never been to Thailand. He was smart enough to figure that out. Like, this Thomas is much more together.
Yeah, he really is.
Than
James Darcy's version.
Yeah, and Katrina's still a mess.
Not as much of a mess.
No, not as much of a mess, but the problem is different.
Yeah, she's a very different issue.
So they created... Yeah, there are two leads, and we've talked about this already. The two leads are where the key is. Mm-hmm. They're just so different.
Yeah. They are completely different, and everything echoes out from that. Like,
Yes.
it's this weird situation where they are recognizably the same characters, but so different that, you know, the similarities almost get lost. Like, these are recognizably the same two people. They have such similar backstories, but they have changed those key elements about them so much and transformed them in the American show into such unbelievably damaged people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
barely functional people. To the point where it's like, I've said that. What I said in the original was, I'm like, man, I don't get why they're all trying to protect Catherine so much. I don't think she's very good at her job.
Well, no, and that is the case. Whereas this Katrina is really good at her job, except when she gets triggered by pedophiles,
any rapists,
sexual abuse. Yeah, those
just
sorts
any
of
rapists.
things.
Yeah, like it triggers her and she goes off the deep end. Whereas it's like that, you know, Chloe Sevigny, Catherine, was like just on the edge of a knife all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like I didn't see, because her boss would talk about it, it's like she's great at her job if she can keep it together. And it's like, I don't know she is great at her job. I don't know what value she is bringing to this organization.
Yeah. You know,
I know that a lot of people have to cover for her all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like, you get why not Mads,
Lars.
the other, Lars Mikkelsen, you get why he's covering for her, because fundamentally she is very good at her job. It's just she's got this, as you say, one trigger that keeps hitting her.
Yeah, and as long as she's not dealing with that kind of a case,
she's really good at her job.
She's good at her job.
Yeah, completely.
So I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, neither one of them got a second season.
I know.
But at least this one
got a movie, though.
This one got a movie to finish it off, and the Swedes picked it up and continued it.
It's weird that it's like, I'm really curious, and we might want to track down the Swedish one after this.
Yeah.
To see if we can find a subtitled version of the Swedish one.
Well, the funny thing is with the Swedish one is that I'm thinking, we were wondering, because it seems to be more like this episode.
This version.
The two main characters, you know, go week by week, you know, and
they just solve crimes.
I think it's got 3 or 4 seasons already, or it's going to get a 4th season.
Well, you know what? Expect to hear us talking more about the Swedish version in the future.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're going to do the Swedish version right after we finish this one and literally just watch 3 versions of the same show back to back. But honestly, if the first episode of the Swedish one is really good, there's a chance that might happen.
We'll watch it and decide.
Exactly. I mean, if it turns out they're all just straight adaptations, we might just do a whole thing where we just talk about the season. Because the American one is such a different show. I mean, it's not Cracker different, you know?
No.
Where
oh God, Robert.
Oh,
it was so bad.
Oh, American Cracker. You had like 2 really good episodes, but they were only 2, and even then, he just wasn't the right choice, Robert Pastorelli.
Yeah. Well, so far, all I can say about this one is that these are 2 very different shows about the same people, and they show the cultural stuff. And I mean, this was a good episode.
It was.
It had some flaws,
but
you know,
you see why I say it's a good episode. But I maintain this could have been a good episode of any show.
Yeah.
You didn't need the 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's what just these 2 episodes?
Yeah.
This could have been anything. This could have been a Law and Order 2-part. I mean, not Law and Order, but
no, not Law and Order.
This could have happened on CSI, you know?
Oh,
okay, sorry, NCIS.
This could have happened.
This could have happened on NCIS.
Yeah, this could have happened on NCIS.
And you wouldn't have questioned it at all. Maybe NCIS Los Angeles or New Orleans, but definitely an NCIS. Like, this could have been an NCIS episode, and you wouldn't have questioned it at all. Like, they would have done an NCIS 2-parter.
Well, they could have had it could have been a Criminal Minds episode. spent more time with the profile.
Yeah, if you'd spent more time with the profile, they could have done this as, you're right.
This could have been 2 episodes of Criminal Minds.
Yeah, they could have done a two-parter like this, where they're like, there's all of these murders happening in the mafia, and, Reed has to go undercover. Oh my God, Reed going undercover. That's what they would have done, obviously.
Oh, obviously. Yes, in the old ones. So.
Yeah, in the old ones. The new ones, Tyler would have to go undercover. And the new one, Tyler, would have to go undercover, right? Yeah. Like, you absolutely could have, this could have been a Criminal Minds episode.
Yeah, if you think about it, this could have, not the other ones. No, like the prison one, holy shit. Like, the only thing I could say is that if we had watched these together.
That would have been a weird experience.
That would have been very, very weird if we had discussed these together, because that should have been what we did. Was originally 3 and 4. Yeah. But after 3, I couldn't. No,
you can't. You can't keep. You gotta go watch anything else. Turn on Sledgehammer, anything but this.
Anything but this. Now it turns out that obviously the showrunners of this show understood that and gave us this.
Yeah, desperately. They definitely realized we needed a breather after that last one.
Oh, because that last one it was just so bleak.
Yeah, it was. Oh.
I still,
I
will never forget that one.
It's one that's going to haunt us. All right. So, next time, I would... very much 5? Like it if you join us back here for 5, and even if it's one we've seen before, we're probably just going to do 5, because with 6 we're going to want to do our show and review, or do you want to do show and review after the movie?
I think we need to watch the movie, because the movie is supposed to end everything, so there might be a cliffhanger at the end of 6.
Okay, so we're probably just going to watch 5 on its own. I would love to know in advance whether it's a remake, or whether not it's you know what I'm saying.
Well, what we can do is watch it on Saturday and decide whether we want to do one more.
Okay, see, that makes sense to me.
So we may do only 1, we may do 2, and then we'll do the movie, and then we'll do the show and review, because the movie, I assume, ties up some loose ends. I'm assuming they're going to do something with her stepfather at some point.
It feels like they
and
have
we've only
to,
got
right?
2 episodes left, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It seems weird to me that they we have never gotten a closure on it.
Well, no, but I think that's deliberate. No, I think that's deliberate and that was deliberate in last week's episode.
Oh, okay.
In 3. You can see that that's deliberate, that Lars has brought it up. You have to let this go. You have to come to terms with this. And somehow, whether this means she has to go and talk to him, whether this means there is another case, they may do that he's sort of married again, with children. We've seen that happen before. Right, that he's abusing, and she has to come to terms with it that way. I don't know what they're going to do, but she has to. What was set up last week, given the horror of that episode, you forget that. But Lars is telling her she has to. You got very upset that he said you've got to, after 15 years, you have to come to terms with this, or it's going to destroy you.
Yeah.
So I suspect that they're going to deal with that particular thing, because there is no crisis really with Thomas. Yes, he's up, he never came. Well, he's upset that his brother committed suicide in prison, but that's in the past. And that's so long ago. And he was so much younger than his brother.
Yeah.
And this, though, Katrina's case is a different kettle of fish, so to speak.
Oh, I would say. And again, when we get to the end, I will figure out what my thoughts are when we get to the end.
Yeah, I think so.
I really do think we have to give them time to figure that part out.
Yeah, but I do think they set that up in that little 45 seconds or 1 minute between Lars and Katrine.
Yeah.
When he says she's got to get into therapy, she's got to get through it, because it is what it is, so to speak. As,
All right, are you ready to get really frustrated?
Okay.
There's also a Dutch version.
No.
There's also a Dutch version.
No.
Yes. I was just looking it up now. I think this was probably going to be impossible to find, but there's also a Dutch version. Oh my god, that's hilarious. There's so many versions of this show.
Everybody loves it, obviously.
Yeah, well, people love the format. All right. So,
Okay.
all right. We'll be back with more of that next week. For now, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling-related fiction you'd like us to check out when we finally stop watching versions of the show Those Who Kill, drop us a line of profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Oh my god. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, especially if you're listening on a podcatcher. If you are also angry about how mean we are to Spencer Reed, please let us know. Oh my god. We will see you back here for more Those Who Kill. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
Well, I have only one thing to say. What if they did an Indian version?
Oh my god, that'll be the best thing in the world. Are you kidding me? Yes,
Anyway,
please.
have a good week.